Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to begin by expressing my deepest gratitude to each of you for joining me today. I know that as educators, our time is valuable and that every moment we spend together is time away from preparing lessons, grading, or working directly with our students. The fact that you are here today speaks volumes about your dedication to improving students' achievement and your willingness to collaborate for the success of all of our learners. Today's meeting is an important continuation of the work we began in our last session. So we have some teachers that are the same from the last meeting, and we have 2 additional teachers. In observation video 1, we came together to review our data and identify an area of concern that needs immediate attention. Through our discussion and analysis, we were able to agree upon a student learning gap that has been consistently reflected in our assessment data. That conversation laid the foundation for today's focus group meeting. Now we have the opportunity to move from identifying the problem to developing the solutions that will address it. For the record, this is observation video number 2, focus group meeting, part 2, formal observation. The purpose of today's meeting is to collaborate and decide on 1 or 2 concrete strategies that we as a team will commit to implementing in our classrooms. These strategies should directly target the gaps we identified in our students' performance. Our focus today will be on building an action plan that is not only realistic and manageable, but also powerful enough to make a measurable difference in student learning. Before we begin, I want to emphasize that this is a team effort. Each of you brings unique experiences, strengths, and insights. Some of you may approach instruction through small group work. Others may lean heavily on guided practice, while others may integrate technology or project-based learning. Every perspective is valuable. The richness of this discussion will come from hearing multiple voices and considering strategies from different angles. As we collaborate, I encourage you to share openly what has worked for you, what challenges you have faced, and what you believe might move our students forward. Feel free to share examples from your own classroom practice, even small successes, because sometimes it's those small adjustments that create the largest impact over time. Our ultimate goal is simple: to ensure that every student has access to high quality instruction that helps them meet and exceed grade level expectations. But our process today requires us to think deeply, to ask critical questions, and to be willing to test and refine strategies until we find the approaches that truly work for our students. I also want to highlight the importance of evaluation. Whatever strategies we decide on today will be implemented between this meeting and our 3rd observation video. That means we will need to think not only about what we want to try, but also how we will measure its success. We want to be able to say with confidence whether our plan is working, and if it isn't, we need to be ready to adjust. So as we move forward, I encourage us to keep and open in mind 3 things: our students' needs, keeping them at the center of our discussion, our collective expertise, leaning on each other's knowledge and experience, and last but not least, our responsibility to take action, ensuring today's conversation leads to implementation and measurable results. Thank you again for being here. I appreciate your time, your commitment, and your professionalism. Together, I know that we can design strategies that will not only address the gaps we identified, but also empower our students to become more confident, capable learners. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So let's begin with introductions. Please share your name, what subject or grade level you teach, or just your position, and how many years you have been teaching.
So my name is Naisha Tolbert, special education counselor, but I've been in teaching special education this is my 15th year.
I'm Kimberly Jones, teaching ELA Social Studies first grade, and this is my 27th year of teaching.
My name is Benito Cantu. This will be my 18th year. Currently I'm teaching first grade math, science, and social studies.
And I'm Antoinette Gales, intern at PVAMU. This is my 4th year teaching, and I'm teach math, science, and social studies. Okay, so before we move into our discussion, let's revisit the norms that we established during our first meeting. So one of them was to be attentive. Thank you. Okay. One of them was to be attentive. The other one was to be respectful. And respect everyone's opinions, and then participate, engage. Okay, do we all agree to continue using these norms today?
Yes, we
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any norms, additional norms that we would like to add to today's meeting to help our collaboration?
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a minute to look at our data that was presented in our last meeting. We all have data sheets showing the STAR performance of non-economically disadvantaged students and economically disadvantaged students in grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and how they scored in reading and math on the STAR test. So let's take a few minutes to look at that to familiarize yourself. If we need a couple of more minutes, just let me know.
Yeah,
Okay, you ready, Mr.? Okay.
just took me a while to understand it.
Uh, In our last meeting, we carefully reviewed the student performance data from STAR results of Harris Elementary grades 3 through 5. The data highlighted a clear gap in achievement among certain student groups. Those student groups are economically disadvantaged versus non-economically disadvantaged, and how they scored on math and reading STAR tests in grades 3 through 5. This gap indicates that these students may need targeted support and focused instructional strategies to reach grade level expectations. On our campus, there is a huge gap in percentage between the two groups as far as the amount of students in each category. So we have more economically disadvantaged students than non-economically disadvantaged students. However, we discovered in our last meeting that there is really not much of a difference in the STAR scores between those groups of students. Overall, our campus has increased on the reading and math STAR tests in grades 3 through 5, but there are still some major learning gaps that need to be addressed. Some of these gaps appear in areas such as reading comprehension and multi-step math problems. We also agreed that in order to try to avoid these gaps in the beginning, a foundation has to be laid in the earlier academic years. This foundation can be built through consistent early literacy and math instruction, implementation of guided reading programs and daily math practice with manipulatives, and early intervention for students struggling in kindergarten through 2nd grade. By starting strong in the primary grades, students are more likely to gain the skills and confidence they need to succeed in the upper grades and assessments like the STAR. So by analyzing this information, we were able to identify the trends in the first meeting in areas where students struggle the most, which gives us insight into where intervention and instructional support will be most impactful. We also agreed that this was an area of critical need, and it became clear that addressing it requires a deliberate and collaborative approach. Today, our goal is to build on that analysis by identifying and discussing strategies that can help close these gaps that are needed for our 3rd through 5th graders to be successful on the reading and math STAR. We want to ensure that the strategies we select are practical, evidence-based, and tailored to specific needs of our students. My purpose statement is, the purpose of this practicum observation activity is to provide the intern an opportunity to collaborate with his or her grade level team, departmental team, professional learning community team, or campus faculty group in a 45-minute focus group discussion to improve student achievement. So as we discuss potential strategies, I encourage everyone to reflect on your own classroom experiences. So take a few minutes to think about what you have done in the classroom to help close the gaps. As being like early elementary school teachers, in the primary grades, just think about what you've done in your classroom to help close those gaps. So whether you teach reading, you can answer based on reading. If you teach math, you can answer based on math. Just take a few minutes, unless y'all are ready. Need a few minutes? Couple of minutes?
When I was teaching 3rd grade, it just seemed like some of the foundational supports were not instilled in some of the children, but then again, like some of the kids are coming in fresh. Me as a bilingual teacher, one of the biggest things was some of the children came in from another country, and then this whole education model is totally different from the country that they come from. So then we had to lay the foundation in third grade that should have been instilled in first and second, but those children weren't here in first and second. So, I mean, I see in third grade, it's 57% for, or 58% for math, but then it increases, you know, almost double digit, you know, 16% from third to fourth. So, I mean, it just could be good teaching. Most of it I see is gradually increasing for math. And I also see that it's increasing for reading. So we're doing good as far as the approaches, which is where we're trying to fill in the gaps and get the children from the lowest level to somewhere near to be successful. But you know, we did have to do a lot of after-school tutoring. We did have to invest that time with the children. And now that we're in a school where we have a little bit more time, more days, I don't know if we're using the time wisely. Because we have an extended year, but we're not using approaches that, to me, would benefit the children the most. Me as a teacher, I want to have hands-on as far as what my classroom needs, but I get handed something from the district that says do this, and it might not be what my children need. So that's one of the things that I would like to hopefully bring up. Why are we, if we have an extended day and we're doing stuff that comes from the district, why aren't teachers having a more input as to what each class needs? That's my 2 cents.
Ms. Jones, thank you, Mr. Cantor.
I agree with Mr. Cantu as far as the foundational skills, being that I have taught third grade ELA, which was the start grade, and then moving down from second and first grade. And I think it's really important that the kids have those foundational skills, learning to decode and decoding and segmenting words, learning those phonics and those sounds. So it starts there, because there was a gap when they get to third grade if they didn't get those foundational skills, or if a lot of times the kids don't go to kindergarten. That's important too. Kindergarten is important. Even I noticed that with my kids, I have a couple that didn't go to kindergarten, so they missed out on some of those foundational skills. So things that I do, I just make sure my small groups are intentional, using my student data from MAP or whatever, and using those Lexia interventions, and just trying my best to maximize my time. So every chance I get, I'm having them work in, like, even, I don't know if y'all know, in the restroom, we're spelling words, we're sounding out, we're blending, we're segmenting. So just making good use of time with whatever time we have. Just use it in any type of way that we can.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Ms. Tober, what have you seen that has worked? Because I know you're not in the classroom anymore,
No, I'm not.
but you've taught before, so what have you seen that has worked?
So, I've done middle school for majority of my career, and I never understood why it was so tough for them when they come to middle school. When I started in elementary, I realized what was going on. They never received the foundations, and now we have, you know, when they get in 6th grade, they've lost whatever it is, and you have to go back. So when I was in the classroom, what made this successful for me was I had to go back to the basics with them. And I spent so much time, especially at the beginning of the school year, just reviewing stuff. I'm like, you remember this when you were in 2nd grade? You remember this when you was in 3rd grade? Oh yeah, miss, we did do that. Okay, because it's just such a big gap. And I feel like right now, as I go in and out of the classrooms, everything is so rushed. And when I'm thinking about my SPED babies, because a lot of our SPED babies are economically disadvantaged too. And when I think about them, they can't rush. And so it just keeps the gap growing versus trying to bridge it, out. It's everything has to be at a certain time. Like the pacing calendar. I hate the pacing calendar because it's not beneficial for the students. When I was growing up, we stayed on a subject until we kind of got it. And the kids don't have an opportunity to do that. I think that's really what's making it tough for them to learn, because you're only on the subject for a week or two, and you have to move on. Well, they're not gonna tell you, I didn't understand you last week. They're just gonna keep, doing that. So that's what I've observed in the classroom. It's so streamlined. It's not individualized.
And I agree with you, because we have to stay on schedule. We have to make sure we are on schedule and making sure when someone comes in, we're here. So we're rushing in a lesson a day, and some of the lessons are, especially in reading, those stories are extremely long. You're trying to get through these stories, ask all these questions, guiding questions, and I'm like you, we're rushing through it.
Yeah. And some things are so complex. It takes maybe a week or two for the kids to finally get it. And when I observe, I can tell who doesn't get it, but they're not gonna tell you guys as teachers because they don't want to be singled out, right? So they're just lost, and they stay lost. And as the year goes on,
I have to agree with what you're saying about the pacing calendar. I remember in the days past, they gave us a subject and then they let the teacher decide how to do it. We would get together in a group and we would decide what strategies have worked before, how they would change, if somebody learned a new technique or a new way of doing it. And now it seems like the pacing calendar is just this lesson this day, next day, and they don't have any room for you guys to go back one day. If the whole class doesn't get it, you're still bound by the pacing calendar to go jump to the next level and the next level and the next level, and there's no gap there to stop for the children that are having difficulties or didn't get something.
And also, coming from a SPED perspective as well, a lot of the times, because I've done every position in SPED you can do in SPED, a lot of the times when I was doing inclusion, it's not my kids that need help, it's the other ones that will come and ask for help. And I think that's really has increased our SPED population, because a lot of times it's not that they don't get it, they just didn't have time to understand it. And that's hard for me to see that for them, is that they don't get the additional services and help that they need also as well. Because it's many days I would go in the classroom and it would be a student, can you help me? Because I don't understand what she just said or what he just said, and they're not SPED. And my student that I'm servicing knows him better than that student. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he gets extra support. Exactly.
And then, so I think y'all have answered some of my questions already, but I'm still gonna go back. So, individually, with the kids that you have now, or kids that you worked with in the past, so what challenges? I know Ms. Tolbert mentioned some things about how she went back and do you remember what we did in second grade? What do you remember what we did in first grade? But what challenges you two, as classroom teachers, have you encountered, and what solutions do you think might help, the kids that are in the higher grades? What do you think that the teachers can do now to help them get to grade level? What practices do you think that the teachers could use to help them be ready for the start of next time around?
I think just setting up a culture in your class where, like she said, that children don't wanna ask, they don't wanna be singled out. And if you make it okay to be asking questions, it's, not exactly singling out, but just making it a plus to ask, you wanna stress to the children that it's for their benefit. So even children as young as first grade, I always tell them, what I'm gonna teach you, you're gonna learn today, but you're gonna use it for the rest of your life. And I try to, put it as simply as I can. If you go to the store and you count the money, do you just give them all of your money? No, you're gonna have to count the money. When you pay your rent, who pays the rent? My mom and my daddy. Okay, well, how do they know if they gave them the right quantity? And you kind of wanna show them why they're here. You can't just tell them you're gonna learn it to learn it. You have to give them the why.
And that's just our generation. This is the generation we're dealing with. They have to, it's a book called The Why. And you always have to give them the why. They kids wanna know why stuff is so important. And what I used to do when I was in the classroom, I used to give my kids points for asking questions. Oh, you did an awesome job, let me give you a point. And then they get so many points, and then I'll have them like, positive praise, something for them to do. So that they would get used to being able, it's okay to ask questions and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, you're the leader for the week. You get to do, this week. You're gonna be my helper for the week because you've been asked so many questions, things like that. And that helps them.
I do like that. Like I said, you have to set the culture up in the class to where it's acceptable to do your questioning and not feel that the children are being left out or being excluded if they ask the question. Now they're the unpopular kid. So,
Okay, so are there specific examples from your classroom where students have improved after targeted support? So like when you look at, like maybe after they take an exam or something, or even a math test, and you see, okay, well, they had problems right here, they had problems right here. Are there any examples where they've improved after you did those small groups and you tended to their individual needs? Were there any, you have any examples of that?
I was we were doing a skills lesson of the read aloud this morning, and I was kind of taking notes of listening to them read and things, and what I was noticing is by me breaking down those foundational skills and them learning to sound out words and everything, that they were actually reading better today than the beginning of the year. They were taking their time, they were sounding off the words, trying to read it, so I've noticed a difference in actually them trying to decode and read.
What about you now?
the children that need help will sometimes try to hide their lack of knowledge, and we'll try to copy. And at this, now we're in first grade, I look at so many of the children and they'll just look over, and instead of asking, they'll just try to make it through any which way possible. And if you can get them early enough and get them to feel comfortable asking questions, it makes them feel a whole lot better that they can actually ask one of their teachers. Now, when I get asked a question, I try to maintain as calm as possible, and I tell them the only reason I can't answer questions if I'm working with somebody else. Now, when I've answered their questions and taken my time, I do see a benefit, I do see an improvement, and not only that, but they will keep on asking more questions. Like you said, you framed it in a positive way that they'll keep on coming back. The kids that I take to a small group, they've already asked questions before, so they're already on my radar. And I go back and I double check on them or triple check on them. But if they don't ask questions, sometimes they fall off to the side. The more questions you ask, the more attention you get from me, and especially when we have them so young.
And so are there like any particular resources, tools, or strategies you found effective for increasing student engagement and understanding?
Well, they love manipulatives in math. They love manipulatives, and if they see me working with children with manipulatives, they think it's a game, and they wanna come and join the table. And I'm like, okay, no, it's not a game, we're helping them, we're helping some people, and it's funny that the other kids wanna join in.
I've noticed, I started using the Strive for Five strategy. We've been talking about in CBPO, and so it gets them thinking more and elaborate more on their questioning. So if I was to ask them a question like, what do seeds need to grow? And they'll say something like, dirt or whatever, to try to get them to say more. I go back and forth with that one student. Okay, what else do they need besides dirt? What does dirt help them do? And just trying to ask more questions. It's called Strive for Five. And just continuing on with that one student to get them to answer in a complete sentence and more detailed answer. And I've noticed it does help. I've tried it and it seems to be working.
Okay, so what patterns have you all noticed in student errors or misconceptions that we could address as a team? So if you want, we can do one for reading, some for reading, a couple for reading, a couple for math. Like what misconceptions or student errors have you, misconceptions have you noticed that we can, like let's see, let me ask it a different way. So what patterns do you see often in the students, like the misconceptions that they make when learning to read, or when trying to decode, or when trying to count or do addition or subtraction? Like what misconceptions do you think we could address as a team?
Being that we're first grade, I'm surprised that kids cannot count as fluidly as I would expect. Because when I give a problem and I expect them to start from 8 and count up, they still have to use their fingers to count all the way up to 8 and then keep counting forward. So that's one of those things I wish we would work on a little bit more fluency by the time they get to first grade. Some other children I've noticed, it's a chant. They can count, but it's a chant. They can't quantify what they're saying. If I say, give me 3 coins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not they can't quantify their song to name the quantity of objects. So that I've had to go back and literally go to the count, 1 and stop, 2 and stop, and 3, because I guess they're trying to make it fun in pre-K to count, but then it doesn't go past the song. It doesn't quantify what they're saying.
They can say the numbers,
They can
but
say the numbers,
they
but
can't
it doesn't have any
number,
meaning.
no number recognition.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even in reading, what the phonics, like the phonetics of all the like blending and stuff like that. And I see we have a increase with dyslexia. And a lot of times, I don't believe that they have dyslexia. I believe they just didn't learn the different things, how to blend words, like what 2 letters make a sound.
The rules.
And they don't know. I tutor outside too, and a lot of my kids that I'm tutoring is, and they're in 3rd and 4th grade. They, A-E-I-O-U. What 2 letters make those sounds? Like they really don't know that. Like truly do not know that. They don't know the silent E, and 2 E's make a long E sound. And so they're just looking at the word, and then they'll look, and they truly don't know the word. And it's hard for them to read, and you're in the 4th to 5th grade, and you're reading full passages and books and stuff.
So, how can we measure the effectiveness of a strategy in a short amount of time to know if adjustments are needed?
In a small group, it's easier because you literally do your strategy and give them something to test if they got a grasp of what you're saying, or if you're gonna have to call them back another time. I know sometimes, this year I've had children that have some severe gaps, and I'm trying to teach them something as simple as, give me 5 coins, and again, they go back to the song, and we're trying to break them off of the habit of just singing, and literally counting one, touching, and that, you know, it's an immediate response to what I'm trying to get across to them, and sometimes it can't be done in one session, it takes time. So it's an immediate response of what you're trying to get across and how they're perceiving it.
So what support may we need, like from our colleagues or administration or our ISs to implement our strategies, you know, like to make sure that the students are successful? What kind of support do you think we may need?
I wish we had more paras. I wish we had more paras to come in and work with small groups, because, you know, when I'm working with the small groups, I wanna spend so much more time with them, especially with the lowest of the low, because that's the only way they're gonna progress, if you work one-on-one with them. So I wish we had more, small groups and paraprofessionals who are qualified to teach or lead to small groups.
Or even as we're working in a small group, those kids, of course, we say ask 3 before me. A lot of times the ones that they ask don't know the answer, so if those parents were there, you know, they don't have to know how to teach, just to answer some of the questions that they may have, which gives me more time to focus on the kids at my table, rather than, you know.
I totally agree. I think that would be very helpful for students, because it gives students are more comfortable in small group, because there's not as many people listening and looking at what they're doing, and then the person is there. So they will ask more questions when it's a small group versus, you know, with 20 plus kids in a classroom. I think that would be a very beneficial thing if they could put more, you know, people in the classroom, especially in elementary, to just help to understand, because you don't know, because Susie's quiet, a lot of times she looks over because she's quiet, she's not gonna say anything, but she doesn't know what's going on, and a parent could be like, okay, what do you need help with? You know,
Okay.
that's a good idea.
Okay, let's see, so we have for reading, letter sounds, and for math, counting fluently. So by sharing our collective experiences and answering these questions, we can develop a plan that is both actionable and effective in improving student outcomes. The discussion today is an opportunity for us to leverage our expertise and collaborate to ensure that every student receives the support they need to succeed. So let's take a couple of minutes to brainstorm and to think about all the things that we've talked about today. So what are 2 strategies that we can implement in the classroom, one for reading and one for math, to help close these gaps? So we can, y'all can talk to each other to come up with one for reading and one for math. I'll give you about 2 minutes. Yeah, unless y'all want me to write, I can write.
2 strategies.
So one for reading and one for math.
I think that the partnering a high and a low kid is always a great strategy to use. Sometimes we don't have enough high children to support or help us with the kids, but sometimes I always said you need we used to call them spark plugs. You need somebody to start leading the conversation. So sometimes I would praise the kids that are asking questions, and once one person starts the conversation, we can all gradually get used to talking in groups. So one strategy that I try to use is to pair up the children who are, we're not only children, we're also kind of a little bit psychologists. We need to know who is able to bring out the best of their partner, not only in academics but in behavior. So you need to find a solid match between two children. So you need to strategize to see who's the best partner for who, and actually lead them to a better place academically, emotionally, and play around with your groupings.
So you said to pair up students,
And maximize what you got. Sometimes you have enough children to help you, and sometimes you're gonna have to make do with what you have.
let's see.
So I think grouping is a very important strategy to keep using in your class.
So even if it's like peer tutoring or,
Yes.
you know, open like when students can rub off on each other in a positive
Yes.
way. Okay, got you. Okay, and what about one for reading? What, like what is a strategy that you can implement in a classroom to close those gaps?
I think when using the strategy of making sure that everyone has a voice or everyone has the opportunity to share, you know, we have the kids that are quiet all the time when we're having a whole group discussion, and kind of do some type to make sure that I do some type of cold call or some other way of engaging all students, make sure all students are engaged, and then, you know, making sure you have that questioning in place to ensure that students understand. And like I said, like and I hate to keep bringing up the Strive for 5, I picked that one student and I use, you know, I make sure that I have questioning set up for if the student does not give me the correct answer, what am I going to ask next to kind of guide him or her in the right direction. If the student answers correctly, then I have some questions that kind of spirals up to make sure that I have that student thinking higher, give high expectations for that student. So it depends on
Like
the
guided
student.
questions and turning talks. Okay.
Student discourse.
And I like stations. I love stations because stations allows, as a teacher, you go to, it's basically just a small group when in a big group kind of thing. And they tend to, it helps them communicate better and learn how to work with various people. And I never did the same kids in one group.
First grade teachers, please pick up your students in your from their ancillary classes at this time. Thank you.
Okay, what was it saying? I'm
No,
sorry.
just stations. I like stations because it helps them not only academically, but it makes them well-rounded on how to be the problem solvers and also to talk to each other more.
Okay, so, to close, let's just summarize what we accomplished today. We revisited the data from video 1 and confirmed the performance gap. We shared and discussed multiple strategies. We came to agreement on those strategies to pair up students more, you know, for like the peer tutoring experience. And in reading, we'll use like guided questions and turn and talks. We identified the method of evaluation to measure student progress. I want to take a moment to thank each of you again for your openness, collaboration, and willingness to share during today's focus group meeting. It is clear that we all share the same goal, helping our students close achievement gaps and giving them every opportunity to succeed. The strategies we discussed today gives us a concrete plan of action. What excites me most is that these ideas came from our shared experiences, from what we have seen in our own classrooms. This kind of collaboration reminds me of the power of teamwork in education Each of us brings a different perspective, and when those perspectives come together, we create something stronger we could than we could on our own. Our students benefit when we as educators unite around